What are some of the biggest scams to have happened in history? Fake selling of Eiffel Tower, twice. Victor Lustig, exactly who I thought of too. He had another scheme where he sold people with too much money and not enough cents a box that duplicated currency. And then when they realized they had been scammed, they would either be too embarrassed to do anything or scared of being busted for attempting to counterfeit. He also told them that the box took 10 hours to complete the printing. This was to give him time to skip town. Victor Lustig sold the Eiffel Tower twice because the first victim was too embarrassed to complain that he'd been stupid. That's the psychology behind all successful con tricks. US telecom companies getting like $200 billion to expand infrastructure, which they didn't do. Then using that money to fuck us over with the FCC's fast lanes. Most of the money went to rural ISPs, who just used the money to buy off all other rural ISPs and nearly bankrupt themselves with operating costs. CenturyLink and Frontier were the worst actors. Bought up a bunch of small local ISPs and cities that Verizon and AT&T wanted to give up on supporting. Didn't make any improvements to infrastructure. Really should have had more regulation around it because that money was essentially stolen. The Church of Scientology. Shelley. Where's Shelley? Probably dead or locked away because she's mentally ill, and Scientologists font believe in mental illness or psychiatric treatment. Never trust a religion literally written by a nutcase sci-fi author, y'all. The price of printer ink. This is really a thing the EU ought to regulate better. They have introduced USB-C for standardization. Now please force printer companies to make new models that all adhere to one standard ink cartridge that must be able to accept any third-party made ones. We should crack down on lots of this stuff. The more standardized stuff is, the easier to recycle or refill or reuse also. It's literally cheaper by like $10.30 to buy a new cheap printer every time you run out of ink than to buy more ink. It really is such a scam. Ticketmaster. My hate for Ticketmaster is beyond anything in the world. Ticketmaster fan-to-fan resale. They get a cut of the Inidle sale. They get a cut of the resale. And they are enabling scalpers. The moment Ticketmaster realized they could double dip on their outrageous fees by enabling scalpers was a moment of true evil. American hospital billing. The minute you ask for an itemized receipt and breakdown, they start removing charges left and right, and the bill gets reduced by 30%. Edit. Added American. The last time I got a hospital bill, I sent it to my debt consolidation lawyers, and they were all like, "Don't worry about it." And they made the debt completely vanish. Can confirm from both sides of that hospital bill. Source. I worked in billing for the largest hospital network in the South. Plus, when I was pregnant with my last child, I had complications for which the treatment wouldn't be covered under insurance. We weren't advised of this ahead of time, and received a bill long after delivery for $27,000 for just that portion. Because of my prior work in the billing department, I knew to ask for an itemized bill. Magically, all those charges disappeared. Bottom line, always ask for an itemized bill. Once I got billed $250 for an urgent care visit when I never even stepped into the building. I called from the parking lot and was told I didn't qualify for a COVID test. This was at the very beginning when they were being stingy with them. Hung up and left and got a bill a week later. I just paid it to make it go away because I had no resources or time to dispute it. Asterisk edited to add I called the customer service number for this facility multiple times and received no assistance. Basically was told, "That sucks, but there's nothing we can do." Tulips in the Netherlands in the 16th century. There was a point at which one tulip bud cost as much as a good house. I see your tulip mania and will raise you one South Sea bubble. It's basically the first stock market speculative crash. The South Sea Company bought up government debt and inflated its stock prices by reselling the debt at a profit, not unlike how banks floated mortgage loans leading up to 2008. After the crash, there was a parliamentary investigation that revealed insider trading and compromised politicians to the highest levels of the government. Sounds familiar, huh? What's always been crazy to me about the South Sea bubble is how both the Exchequer and the South Sea Company went into this thinking they found some magical loophole to erase debt, and were shocked when it didn't work. Memphis really thought debt could be paperworked away, more or less. Incidentally, they finally paid off the last of the South Sea bubble debt in 2015. The bubble happened in 1711. The UK carried that debt for 304 years. The Trojan horse. The one time they should have looked that gift horse in the mouth. The US government once gave Time Warner hundreds of millions of dollars to provide internet to rural areas. Time Warner sorta just fizzled away without ever providing much of anything. Applies to every ISP in the US, and they still take money and do nothing. Not just Time Warner. Verizon and other telecom companies got regulatory approval for additional fees, ostensibly for expansion of residential fiber optic internet service, fiber to the home, or FTTH, and then didn't build it out. There has been no redress for this. Customers paid surcharges for FTTH that was never built. The parts of the US that have excellent residential internet access are specifically the parts where a competitive broadband market exists, usually where the cable and telecom monopolists have to compete with regional ISPs, like Sonic here in the Bay Area, Google Fiber, or other alternatives to the cable TV and Bell-descended monopolies. I'm no Elon fan, but the existence of Starlink has got to be a good thing for the ISP market. Diamonds. Diamonds are lovely stones, but I cannot justify the premium price. Mosanite fan for life right here. On similar lines, gold. Materials are often only worth the arbitrary value people put on them. When New Zealand had a gold rush, the Maori had no problem pointing out where to find gold, but they had little interest in it themselves. Too soft, not very useful. They preferred jade. Turns out gold is insanely useful in materials science applications as well. The valence properties of rare transition metals are great in the chemistry world. Platinum and silver arguably more so. Yeah, netherite is way better anyway, but you still need diamond first. What a scam. I have a son who passed away 3 days after he was born. I didn't have the right insurance for a rare birth we had. $21,000 out of pocket later, he's still not here, but the bills keep coming. I do think, remember the baby you had for 3 days? Yeah, you still owe us 10 grand, is a fantastic summary of American healthcare. Bottled water. Research suggests that for most Americans, the stuff in a bottle is not better for you than the stuff in your tap. In fact, a recent report found that almost half of all bottled water is actually derived from the tap, but may be further processed or tested for safety. 300% profit for a natural resource in plastic bottle. Nestle pays $1 total per year to bottle public water in the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. Their permit is valid even during severe drought periods. They're bottling up the public's water and selling it to them. I'll only buy bottled water if local water is undrinkable or if I'm extremely desperate. Bottled water is one of the biggest scams in human history. Edit. I decided to fact-check myself. Nestle actually pays $2,100 per year for their permit. According to their website, they use 703 million gallons of water a year for bottled water. So for a 12-ounce bottle, they spend 0.00003 cents on water. So many water rights were granted back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, before proper surveys or assessments were done, and we've been massively overusing what the water table can properly carry based on natural recharge rates. Doesn't help that the branches of government responsible for reviewing permits and regulatory oversight are underfunded, understaffed, and hamstrung every few election cycles. See also, the Colorado River, and how rights were divided up by states based off the flow rate for a year, with unusually high precipitation. The war against drugs. How dare you? Edit. Thank you for the award. Well, I mean, marijuana did kinda win the war on drugs, right? Every time we declare war on an intangible concept, the intangible concept wins. Drugs, crime, poverty, terrorism. American-style health insurance. I recently spent a couple hours in an US emergency room for something relatively minor. The bill was $14,000. When I told them I was self-pay, the bill was magically reduced to $5,000. My assumption is that the $9,000 was the expected insurance company's skim cut. Outrageous. I had something similar happen with a dermatologist recently. I told him up front that I was self-pay, and we worked out a price. It was still outrageously high, but it was something that I could manage in the long run. The procedure was done, and I went home with a new scar. Much to my surprise, a couple weeks later, I received a bill from someone that I've never heard of. It was the lab that analyzed the tissue sample the doctor sent off. Their bill was 3 times as high as the doctor visit, and they will not respond to phone calls or emails. Our system is so fucked up that it makes me feel crazy inside. Homeopathic medicine. It's okay, you can pay for a homeopathic consult by leaving a penny somewhere in the building. Naturopaths calling themselves doctors is laughable.